The first 5 minutes of your webinar are the most important. Are you taking advantage of that? Because that's when you're setting the stage in order to make as many sales as possible on your next webinar. And that's the topic of today's video, how to open your webinar so that you're making the most sales possible. It's Tom Jackobs here, and if you're new to the channel, this is all about building up sales processes for the solo practitioner and the solopreneur so that you can have more presentations which turn into performances for more profits in your business. Let's dive into the 3 things that you can do to maximize your next webinar to make as many sales as possible, because that's why you do the webinars, right? To make as many sales as possible. If you can't hook your viewers from the very beginning of your webinar, then the likelihood of you actually making sales at the end and for them to stick around till the end is going to be very, very small. The whole key here is to get as many viewers to stay to the end and hear your pitch for the next step. Here are my 3 tips to make sure that you are optimizing your webinars so that you can make as many sales as possible and help more people. Tip number 1. First of all, you have got to start on time. There's nothing more annoying than being on a webinar that starts 2, 5, 10 minutes late. For those that have logged in on time, reward them by starting on time. And when I say start on time, I mean starting at least 5 minutes prior to the advertised start time. That way you can start to engage with your audience on the chat box and kind of warm them up, ask them where are they from, what's the biggest issue that they want to have solved. Really kind of warm them up for the webinar that you're going to be presenting. And then when it comes time to actually start the webinar, start it on time. Second tip is to start with full frame. You don't want to hide behind a presentation or a presentation screen. So if you had a presentation screen open while you were kind of warming up the audience in their chat box, then take that down and present yourself full frame. You want them to get to know you. That's the whole point, especially for a personalized service. And you want to make sure that you're presenting yourself in the best light. And literally that means like really good lighting, but also you want to make sure that behind you are your diplomas and maybe you're wearing a lab coat if you're a doctor. You want to be as professional as possible on these webinars. Tip number 3, and probably the most important tip, is your opener. I have watched a ton of webinars, and the ones that are successful are the ones where the practitioner tells a story about themselves and why they got into business in the first place. That is critical. Nothing bothers me more than going to a webinar and the person just starts going right into what they're going to be teaching on the webinar and then automatically going in. Like, we have no idea who that person is. And if you go right into business, you're going to lose a lot of your potential clients. They want to get to know you, like you, trust you before they start to do anything with you. And in that opener, it's very important to establish that credibility and also get them to understand why that you're doing what you're doing. And then repeat it again at about 10 minutes into the webinar, especially for those that may have joined a little bit late. You want to kind of refresh everybody's memory on why you started the business in the first place. Now, I'm going to give you a little script here so that you can have a starting point on what this opener might actually sound like. And it's something that I've used quite a bit in my own businesses to create that credibility, but also to humanize myself so that people get to know me and understand why I do what I do. So it might sound something like this. Thank you so much for joining the webinar today. My name is Dr. Jacobs, or you can just call me Tom. I've been in practice for about 15 years, and you can probably see the diplomas behind me. I've had tons of education, so I kind of know what I'm talking about. But that's not what really qualifies me to talk about the topic that we're talking about today. You see, when I was 30 years old, I was overweight, I had high blood pressure, and high cholesterol. And I really had no energy to do anything in my life. My relationships were suffering, my job was suffering, and I didn't really know what to do. And at that point, I was introduced to the topic of functional medicine. And I started to do my own research. And in doing that research, I found a new love for functional medicine and the potential of healing the body from within. And so I went ahead and quit my day job, and I went back to school, and I got qualified, and I got all the education I needed to actually do this as a full-time career. And going through that whole process of fixing my own body gave me really the credibility to be able to teach others and to come from it from a point of knowing. That's why I do what I do today. So that type of introduction does a couple things for your viewer. One, it lays out your credibility. So you point out that you have education and all that, but also it humanizes you by telling your own personal story. Now, if you don't have a personal transformation story like that, you can also use a personal family member or a client that you've helped, or even just the reason why you got into practicing. It can be a very powerful statement that helps your audience realize that you're in this to really help them, not just to help you. Well, by following those 3 steps, I bet that you will convert more people at the end of your webinar than you have in the past. So on your next webinar, be sure to follow those 3 steps and let me know how it kind of works out for you. Now, I've also put together other video here on how to have that sales conversation. And it's an actual sales conversation that I had, and I break it down into all the steps. And I really want you to watch that so you get a really good understanding of how that sales process. And until next time, you have a great day.